know what's going on. There, now it's recording. It was recording, and I looked down, and it stopped, and then everything just froze up. So give me 1 second to just put him back to where he was before.
So you can see what you got.
Yeah, I can see it now. Yeah, okay. I think we're okay.
So do you want him to go back to, like, start the Matthews discussion?
I think we start from the top because I don't know where it stopped.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to go any farther because once I noticed it, I was like, let's just back it up. We're only 4 minutes in, so.
All right.
Give me a second to.
Take 2.
I'm just readjusting his box here. And they make it really difficult. There we go. And we can move his position down. There we go. Look at that. Okay. All right, PJ, if you don't mind just redoing that for me, please. Sorry about that,
Gotcha.
guys.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Competition Archery Media Podcast, where we explore all things pertaining to competition archery. I'm your host, PJ Riley, and the CAM Podcast is brought to you by O'Neill's Classic Archery. And with us today, sitting in a black and gold jersey there, is Tim Gillingham. Tim, thanks for being here today.
Well, thank you.
So, Tim, obviously, we are here to talk to you about that jersey, which is the first time recently for you, but you've shot for Matthews before.
Yeah, I shot for Matthews early in my career. In fact, all my first wins as a pro was with the Matthews. So I think I shot a total of probably 8 years.
Yeah.
You know, I think of my career with the Matthews, and yeah, for a lot of years there. I mean, till Levi Morgan come along, I won a lot with the Matthews. Then I got a lot of seconds after that, but.
I've heard that story from other archers, too. Well, yeah. I'm guessing, Tim Gillingham, you could probably go wherever you want. Why Matthews?
Well, there's one main reason why Matthews, and it's just, you know, and part of it has to do with, I feel like, you know, the way this whole Bowtech thing went down, it was highly disrespectful, in my opinion. And I mean, I had a 5-year contract, and I guess somebody new come in that thought they had a better idea and had no respect for that. And I've always felt like, it's not a feeling, it's a fact that Matthews has always been at the forefront of promoting and driving the shooting programs in competitive archery, because they do see a return on investment when it comes back to their bow hunting sales. And that's a hard thing for marketing departments to see, because they see all these sales over here in bow hunting, and they see this very few sales over here in target archery, and they can't really correlate how the two intermingle and how one affects the other.
Right.
But I've seen it over and over again. You know, you look at Carbon Express come in and can all their staff when they got a new corporate boss, and wow, now you don't even see them anymore.
Right.
It's like, it's crazy. And Matthews has always been there, and it's because of Matt McPherson's commitment to it. You know, I'm sure, and I've heard stories of his accounting department coming after him about it, and he's pretty steadfast in the fact that, hey, this is the way we built our company. It may not make sense to you, but it does to me. And, you know, as a young shooter, I was highly affected by all those ads they ran in the magazines, you know, that we won everything and you won nothing.
Yeah.
It worked, you know, and you know, I hope to have, you know, as much input, you know, with Matthews and some of the different things, but, you know, it's a lot of times it's just, it's kind of a blessing in disguise too, after I've been playing with them a little bit. You know, there's things about these bows that kind of, you know, when you get to my age, I'm 54 years old, you have to start questioning sometimes when you're having problems. Is it just my age?
Right.
And, you know, I kind of struggled aiming that 39, you know, and I heard, you know, Paige and Kyle were doing all kinds of different things with limbs and stuff. And I'm thinking, I ain't never done that in my archery career. Why would I start now? And so I guess some of the, you know, I won a lot with it.
Yeah.
I won a lot with that bow, but I just didn't feel like I shot good with it. You know, I could think of one performance last year that I felt like I shot well and won. But I won a lot. And when I picked this, and this has kind of been true over the years, you know, when I went from Hoyt to PSE, my main goal there was to shoot a bow with a parallel limb on a long riser. And because I always felt like my hunting bows aimed so much better, so much softer. And that's kind of the sensation I got with this TRX, 40 that I'm shooting. I guess they don't have the new one made in my draw length yet, or
right.
So we'll see what happens there. But I really like this bow. I mean, I'm shooting it extremely well. All of a sudden I feel like I can aim a bow again. It's a little different. There's definitely some differences in the draw force curves and stuff that I haven't really gotten familiar with, but part of me is like, maybe I should give it a little time. I might like it better.
I can verify that I saw you several times on the ASA ranges last year, and even when you were leading, you were saying, I just don't feel like I'm aiming well. You said, I'm scoring well, but I'm not aiming the way you want.
Yeah, it's just, you get a guy like Kyle who's 25. He's at the prime of his life, and he knows how that bow should sit. And I'm at 54, and I'm like, I know that I don't ever feel like I've ever been, a dead solid aimer, but you just you start wondering, is it the age, or is it something in the bow system? And I spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. And
yeah,
I just when I first picked this first bow up, I got two of them set up, one for ASA and one for indoor. And I just holy crap, I'm going to shoot this thing so much better. There were some initial things that I didn't like that riser's so big, and that bow's so big that until I got a nice wide grip on it, I kind of struggled controlling it. I had DL Designs. I don't know if you've seen these grips like this.
Ah, look at that.
Here, let me get that right there. So I had to make a little bit wider profile grip, and in the same, angle that I got a 9-degree butt on it, I think. But that makes so much difference to me. Even when I was shooting PSE, when I was shooting Hoyt, I shot those Spa Hog grip plates on. I had to get some width to it, because that width controls the load transfer in the bow. And there's not a lot with these Matthews where they got that reverse assist, roller guard.
Right.
There's not a lot of loading up in the bow. And I'm actually quite surprised in a lot of things I was surprised about. Actually, the way this bow, the speed on it is crazy. I never thought they were as quick as they were. I might have to run one more pound, but I'm gaining. I've actually lost an inch of draw length, because I can only get about 32. I twist cables up, I can get about 32 and just over a half on them.
Yeah.
So I lose a little bit of draw length there. So that's 8 or 10 foot a second, but I'm basically running the same setup I was last year. Now I may have to go to unknown this year, because depends on how Matthews decides to pay their contingency. But
right.
I don't really want to go to unknown, but
I hadn't thought about that. Right. They value that game a little bit more than the known game, and it shows in their contingency.
I wish I could have a deep conversation as to why. But we'll see what happens there.
But before we talk about the bows, I wanted to ask you, but how, going back to what you were saying about them supporting the archers, and then, you see that transferring over to hunting. But from your side of it, how important is it to have someone like that step up and support someone like you in what you do?
Well, I think, I appreciate it wholeheartedly. I got kind of put in a bad spot late in the season, and it may not be as good a contract as I had, but I appreciate what they're doing, and I'm gonna go bust my ass to show my value. And I think that's when shooters contact me for sponsorship, you see some of them talking about it, they want to get sponsored. I'm like, well, what do you bring to the table? It's like, you have to bring something to the table. These are marketing programs designed to sell product. Okay. Yeah. And if you're not turning the needle, you can't justify the program. So I've always tried to really take that, a lot of responsibility in that, department to educate. And a lot of times these marketing managers, they can't, if you're not like a social media butterfly, they can't measure it,
Right.
Even the company I work for, they want you to set your goals and this and that. It's all like measurable matrices. And a lot of what we do is not measurable.
Right.
When I have a conversation with a guy on Facebook Messenger, you can't measure that.
Yeah.
And I probably have 15 a day.
Right.
And how many of those influence and trickle down and it's more important too with high-end products. When you got high-end products that cost a lot of money, they always are bought with a recommendation.
Yeah.
From somebody someone trusts, whether it's a dealer, whether it's a shooter, whether it's the best shooter in that area. That's what staff programs are about. That's why they work. You want that guy behind the counter shooting your product because 90% of the bow hunters walking in don't know what they want.
Well, I have to say I was surprised by the Bowtech move because I thought the thing that it hit me instantly was just what you do. There was nobody who was talking about those bows more than you, talking about what they do, what they can do,
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's just one of them times that I actually got a lot of my way in terms of putting features on bows that made it easy to get from A to Z.
Right.
And easy to teach. And, it's here's what it is. Move on and be done with it. And,
well,
they'll either pay the price for what they did or they won't, whatever.
At the events, Tim Gillingham, you're one of those guys. You're there from A to Z. You're there at the start, there at the end. I've seen you in the booth answering questions, talking. You'll talk to anybody about any aspect of your setup. So I'm sure once Matthews sees that, and that's just part of who you are, I think.
Well, I mean, I just, it's funny how some people hide. I want more people in the sport, right?
Yeah.
I want to beat, I don't want to win because nobody showed up. I want to win because I know I'm the best. I want to win because I beat everybody. Best wins of my career are my back against the wall beating, Levi at the top of his game. I mean, those are the wins you remember, Right. I remember one year at FIDA Nationals, I'd knocked everybody off, man. It was just one of them weekends. It was windy and I was taking them down, even though I was nervous and just a mess. And that's what it's about. It's about, beating yourself. It's like the best trophy in my great room is not necessarily the biggest one. It's the one you work the hardest for.
Yeah.
It's the one that you dug down deep for. That's why when I went to Africa, I wanted to go spot and stock. I didn't want to go sit in a water hole. That's not fun. I mean, to me, what we did was you don't hear about it much. I didn't even know it really existed until I talked to a couple of guys I knew, or a friend of mine that Steve Cobreen that kind of lived over there and was Mr. Bow Hunting Africa for years.
Yeah, so you just came back from Africa. I'm guessing you were hunting with the Matthews bows over there.
Yeah, I took a Matthews Atlas.
Okay.
That bow really impressed me. I took a measurement on that bow at full draw. It's 3 inches longer from cam to cam. It's got over an inch more brace height, which makes it a super shootable platform for a long draw guy. And it's the same speed of what I was shooting in the Revolt XL, which is crazy.
Huh.
I don't know where they get it from. Maybe that big old cam, but yeah, very pleasurable bow to shoot, very quiet. I love parallel limb bows. The parallel limb bows just are dead. They aim better. For my shot style, I think I love that slow float you get with them. And it's just a matter of getting your draw length and your stabilizers right. If I had to get a wish list, I'd probably want a little teeny bit more holding weight, like a 75% mod, so I could, run a little heavier stabilizer. But, sometimes it's, you can take 2 or 3 ounces off each end of my counter slide and it's actually better to be holding, say, 18 pounds of holding weight in a hunting situation. But then you have to learn that you have to lighten your stabilizers up on the other side in order to accommodate that. So,
right. How many animals did you end up taking over there?
Shot 7.
7. Okay. What was your favorite? What was the highlight for you?
Probably the mountain reed buck, the last one.
Okay.
Probably because, again, the most adversity. All them animals are just wired. Trying to spot and stalk them is just crazy. You see a kudu, he's got an ear about that big.
Yeah, right.
I see these groups of kudu cows across the valley, and they will have you pegged at like 1.5 miles. if you don't stay behind trees and out of sight, it's crazy. They foiled a couple of my reed buck stocks, and
Yeah.
I think we stalked 12 times, and the day before I had one perfect. We had the most perfect stalk. We slipped in behind. We were sitting there. They're laying down. We're waiting for them to get up. They're 65 yards away. And if he just gets up without being unalerted, we had a perfect situation. And then the wind started to switch just like it did the previous day. And so we had them to just kind of drive the truck up where they could get in visual. Of course, they drove too close and they bolted. They stopped at 70 and I shot, and the arrow got about 10 yards from him. It's just like he just stepped out of the way, They're so fast. I mean, it's crazy. They're tiny. They're like, I actually kind of equate them to a coos deer. They're very similar.
The reed buck.
The mountain reed buck.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a common reed buck and a mountain reed buck. Common reed buck are more like an antelope.
Yeah, yeah.
Not a pronghorn.
How about that?
They like to be out in the open, sometimes down in the brush a little bit, but
it looked like it was just raining the whole time you were there.
Half the time it rained, yeah.
Huh. How about that?
Yeah, we were mud bogging a lot.
What country were you actually in?
We were in South Africa.
South Africa.
So we were up by north of Durban, by Dundee.
Gotcha. Yeah. And this was a bucket list for you?
I made a call to, Steve Cobreen, he's a guy I want to get on our Gull Tip podcast because he's just interesting, man. This guy's killed more SCI world records with a bow than anybody in history, but he's not a guy that's put them all in the record books. He's not a guy that, he's just one of these, I call him my quintessential British explorer mentality friend, He just loves that kind of adventure stuff. Like he wanted to go to the Amazon. I'm like, you're nuts. So he actually is back in the States now and has a bow fishing company called Vader Bow Fishing. He's building a bow fishing bow, and he's all ate up into that now. So,
gotcha.
But cool life. I just made a call to him one day about doing a spiral horn antelope hunt, and that's kind of spot and stock. And he's like, "Man, I got the perfect guy for you." And it was his best friend. So.
Well, that's awesome. Well, back to Matthews now. So as you're learning these bows, you talked about the grip. You talked about, the length of the riser and stuff. What is it like? Are you in your comfort zone yet? We've got, I don't know if you're going to Iowa. That's here shortly. Iowa Pro.
Going to Rushmore Rumble. I'm not going to Iowa. That's the same weekend as a trade show.
Oh, gotcha. Right. Yes.
So
Rushmore Rumble, do you feel ready for that? How do you feel?
I hurt my elbow about 2 months ago, and I've just kind of been taking it easy. I haven't been shooting a lot. I shot a little local tournament last weekend. Not like Benton Christensen's been tearing it up. He shot a 29x299. So he's been working at it a little bit. So.
Yeah.
And he was all stoved up, got a screwed up elbow, and doing a half draw, and still shooting 29Xs.
Oh, jeez.
But just working, just getting that, because I lost my Black Gold sponsorship at the same time.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Now I got to figure out, site wise what I want to do, and
yeah. So you feel like you can go in and compete like you would expect Tim Gillingham to compete. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've never been a great indoor shooter because it's not really archery. It's just more of a mental game. It's so easy. It's hard, right? Yeah, exactly. But, no, I'm working on that part of it too. And I got that bow aiming really soft and just kind of tweaking my stabilizers the last couple of days. I'm going to go shoot two local tournaments this weekend to try to get more and more ready for it and just get myself into competition. And I don't know. I took third last weekend. Benton missed me. He beat me by this much in the head-to-head shoot-off. So you got that 50,000 up for grabs now at the Classic for a 660. So, you want to try and get that. Bruce Cole and his pipe dreams. It used to be $1 million in archery too. Yeah. A couple guys that could do that, but I just don't think I'm soft enough up here to do that.
I just can't do it. I'm not, I mean, you got to think about it. I went like 20 years before I shot a 30X.
Is that right?
Yeah, shot. It just takes a different type of brainwave pattern, I think, to be able to do that.
So what gets you? What would get you that knock you off the 30X?
Well, I've always struggled in predetermined outcomes. And to me, indoors is a predetermined outcome. They issue you 90Xs and you try not to give them back. And it's not the same game. It's not this offensive powerhouse game where you're trying to win. You're just trying not to lose.
Right.
And I just don't resonate as well with that style of archery.
Yeah.
I love the ASA risk and reward format. It's precision accuracy. It takes a perfect shot to hit the 12, and there's no defense.
So while we're on the subject of ASA, you mentioned it already that you might have to go to unknown. Is that so? That's not determined yet.
It's going to be 100% based on contingency.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Last year it was 2,000, I think, to win known and 8,000 to win unknown. I mean, I'd be stupid to go shoot unknown or known, but I still think known's the better game. It's got the better shooters in it. If the tightest competition.
So for you, having taken a year off from that, well, you didn't really, because you still shot IBO, which is
IBO. It's not that big a deal. It's a pain in the butt because I got to dig out all my targets and I got to put them all out and I got to hope it doesn't snow and then I got to paint them and then I got to fix them and it's not a good. My opinion, it's just not a good measurement matrix of the best archers in the game. But whatever.
Right.
There'll be plenty of people that disagree with me, but that's going to have to come from the people running the tournaments.
Well, last year was the first year, so senior known pro, we'll see how it builds up. It was a pretty good turnout there, if it.
Yeah, but it's just you don't want to candy coat it, right? Money talks, period.
For sure.
Yeah. Period. That's the game. People are going to go where the money is.
Yeah.
There's some people that just don't have any, if you don't own the targets, you can't play the unknown game, period. If you don't have targets in time, you can't play the unknown game. So they don't even have the option.
Right.
I think that's why some people want to keep it that way because they know not everybody has that, that available to them, and that's always been a sense of frustration with me. Why do you create a sport that doesn't include everybody?
Yeah. Well, so.
And when I say you can't. My success started in unknown yardage the moment I bought a house and had, targets in the backyard. Not until.
Yeah.
It's just impossible unless you have, local 3Ds every weekend with the same targets you're shooting and you're in leagues 2 nights a week and you're seeing them all the time. There's a handful of guys that are just gifted, that have photographic memories. I think that they can see a target once and then they just know. Yeah. There are some people that way, and I think that's one of the reasons they dominate the sport and the same people always win, but that doesn't happen.
I always found it interesting that the people I talked to who didn't have targets, they all shot known distance. I never talked to an unknown who wasn't regularly using the targets.
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
The fallacy is that people think you're actually judging yardage. You're on the ground. You're not doing that really. It's recall memory. It's a lot of things. You use everything, but most of it is just simple recall memory.
Yeah.
And the sharper your brain can be, like if I get 10 hours of sleep and I'm sharp, my judging is sharp. Okay. Because my computer's working well.
Yeah.
If you're tired and I'm sure there's supplements and things, I've noticed if I drink a NOS energy drink while I'm shooting, just not the whole thing. Just sip it. You know, it sharpens me.
It does.
Yeah.
Boy, Jesse Broadwater would freak out about that. He gives me
that's because his it's just the way his body's, you know, his physiology is, right? Some people react to that stuff. Some people, I mean, what do they give guys with ADD, right?
Yeah.
They give them a stimulant. Rest my case. I think Levi, you know, will drink some type of I don't know what he has. It's some squincher thing or who knows what he. I thought about getting Rogan's freaking Alpha Brain, see if that would work.
So
it's a Shilajit.
with the TRX 40 now, will you have the patented Tim Gillingham antenna stabilizers, the 4 setup?
Right now I have a Bee Stinger Premier Plus 33 on the front, and I've got 20-inch back bars, and I have them offset like I had, you know, with the left, most of the weight on the back left and the front right. I actually really like that setup a lot.
So just one front, 2 back.
Yeah, but the front's offset to the right. Okay, and what that allows me to do is it allows me to get the back bar. I want to get that back bar away from my body. That's one reason I hate 2-bar systems, because you can't get into your grip. It's always in the way. I mean, I can run a what is it, a 53-inch system running the way I do, but if I had to try to run that in a 2-bar system, it would just be always in the way. You couldn't get in behind your grip, you know, and it was always be running into your side. And so it's a really well-balanced setup. And then the right bar is simply just a kind of a cantilever to get everything to sit straight. Right. And that seems to be the most effective way to do it. Maybe I'll revisit a quad bar, but I don't think so. Well, right now these bows are, like I said, they're aiming really soft. So the valley's different in these bows. It's really different, but I'm not sure that I don't like it better. I don't know yet.
Yeah. How long ago was it that you were shooting Matthews before this?
Oof.
90s?
I think it was the last time I went to Africa, because I shot a switchback LD, and it was somewhere about 14 years ago.
Oh, okay. So still 2000s. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was, I won my first pro tournament in 04, 05. So somewhere around 4 to 10.
Gotcha. Okay. Totally different between then and now. Well, you talk about, besides the bows, talk about just Matthews, the company, the differences you see between then and now.
Well, it's funny because you see products come out that you're thinking, who did that? You know, and then they've got a pretty good engineering team in there now. So, I mean, every company changes, every company grows, every company hopefully learns from their mistakes.
Yeah.
The best products are always created in teamwork. You know, you want a team, I think, of shooters, you want a team of engineers, and you want, a team of product managers that, keep, there's give and take in every scenario. But if you build, not every shooter is going to have the same desire, so, you've got to kind of draw a happy medium there. Companies always have to settle. There's no such thing as perfect. There's no such thing as, there's only one way, and that's the only way you can do it. And some people, like, I ain't going to mention any names, but they start, putting out that there's only one way to do this and one way to do that. And it's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true at all.
So
I watch,
go ahead.
I watch some of these guys like Zach that shot 660 at Lancaster last year.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know his setup, right? Most people don't understand he's only shooting 120 grains in the front of a triple X. And that just offends people's like understanding of archery. They don't get the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
They don't understand why one guy's shooting a 250 grain point, one guy's shooting a 120. Well, the guy, they don't understand that a lot of that is the different types of arrow rests, the different types of form. Just because Jesse Broadwater has a 2.5-inch vein on his arrow doesn't mean you can.
Yeah.
You're not, probably making as clean as shots as he is on average,
That's for sure. I've seen some of Zach's targets so far this year. 660 is in trouble again with him. That's for sure.
Christian Clark and these young guys that can handle weight. I've been trying to bump my front stabilizer weight up because it slows that motion down. That's why Kyle can do it. Yeah. I mean, if you can hold 28 ounces up, I'm not sure where Joel come up with the fast movement thing, but I disagree 100%. I like that son of a gun to just go.
Yeah. Bodie likes his setups are always so light, but that's like you said, that's what works for him.
If you're a calm person, you can do that. If you're not, you can't. If you're a puncher, you can't.
Yeah.
And you don't want to, because a guy that shoots a surprise shot doesn't really know any, and that may validate some of the things Joel's saying in terms of that micro reaction the body makes. But the fact is there's a way to counter that too.
Yeah.
Because there's no denying some of the very best shooters in this game right now are punchers, and a lot of them.
For sure. And that's the thing that always, somebody like Kyle, not everybody can do that because you start to anticipate and then you have problems.
Okay, but the solution is to deal with anticipation, not to Band-Aid it with something else.
Right.
Again, tell you what, I went to see Lanny Basham years ago. And Lanny said, I don't understand this surprise shot in archery. It makes no sense to me. He says, you think we didn't deal with anticipation in rifle shooting? He said, we did.
Yeah.
He said, we just didn't give people careers on it. We didn't talk about it all the time. We dealt with it. We fixed it. I quote David Tubbs. David Tubbs talks a lot in his books about that style of surprise versus, not surprise shooting. And he was one of the best multi-positional rifle shooters in the country. And it was all about canceling motion to him. It was build a position that cancels motion. And that's what I strive to do in my shooting. I think that's what Kyle strives to do. That's where these little micro adjustments in holding weight and draw length and anchor point. One of the reasons I anchor with my thumb in behind my neck is because it welds that whole thing into one unit. Okay. Same thing as a rifle shooter that's sitting in here tucking everything in and wrapping into a sling. They're creating one cohesive unit. You get shooters that, look at Chris Schaff, for example. Chris comes right up on the side of his face because I guarantee it makes him feel steadier when everything's just welded in. If you're sitting up here, I remember some guy sent me a snapshot of a forum in Australia or something where somebody was critiquing my piss poor form. It's not proper form. That proper thing, I heard proper a lot in the South Africa. That's a proper kudu. But it doesn't matter, as long as you do the same. To me, if you're sitting up here like really loose, that's horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's just sitting there, it doesn't make any sense to me. I think you want ledge. One of the problems, though, is all of the release aids on the market, all of them. The triggers are too far forward for you to hook in behind your neck unless you're going to run a longer loop. And my problem is I already got a long loop.
Yeah.
So in order for me to hook in behind my neck and use, say, a Scott trigger, I would have to have like a 2.5-inch loop. Just it ain't going to work. So
you want that head out farther and the trigger back so you can anchor.
I actually think I'm going to build my own line of releases.
Well, I was going to say, what was it? The little short one. They had those, what the heck was that? The Gearhead. They had those funky releases where the trigger sat like, it was like 5 inches behind the head of the release because you weren't drawing the bow all the way back to anchor. But I haven't seen them in years now.
So you could shoot inside your truck cab or something?
You could get away with a lot of stuff. They weren't the best releases. They were.
Yeah, well, there's and that's kind of my take on it. There's just not any really good double sear or good quality trigger releases on the market. There's not.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of really mediocre stuff.
You're still using the True Ball Execute, I believe.
Execute's a good release, but I modify it and bring the trigger back.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the mechanism is a good mechanism, yeah. Best one on the market. Not conducive to hunting, though.
I liked it, and I use it for hunting. That's the one I like.
No, but I promise you, when you had to load it in the dark, you'd hate yourself. And if you got stuck, you always got to flick it to get the trigger open. That's movement. My goal is to figure out, and I've hated hook releases. I cannot shoot a hook as well as I can a gated jaw.
Right.
Plain and simple, cannot. And I think a lot of it has to do with just, nuances in your form. And if you're a person that just hooks a release and fires the same tension, you might not notice it, right? Kind of like a finger shooter shooting through a clicker, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same principle, right? You wonder how they can hit anything. If I could tell the difference between a hook jaw and a non-hook jaw, how the hell do they hit anything with these,
Yeah.
But I've got some ideas on how I think I can achieve that. And actually the guy that I was hunting with over in Africa, he's got a full machine shop. So he's actually building products for SCI and that market. And so we're talking.
I was going to say, I can't believe you haven't built a release yet. As much as you modify things, I just thought you'd.
There's only so much time in the day, and I only have so much expertise, and I don't know how to do all the CAD work and all the other stuff that the team that it takes to build a product. It's not, most of the time it takes a trust fund or a team, one of the two.
Well, all right. So Matthews, circling back to Matthews again. So you're going to be shooting there. So now everybody talks about the team. So do you call up like Levi and Dan and share tips and all that stuff like teammates, or is it more?
I've called Dan and asked him a couple questions about, he shot him longest. I think he's one of the more intellectual guys in the game, in terms of understanding equipment, why they do certain things. I've talked to the engineers there. I've talked to Danny Evans a little bit about certain things. It ain't rocket science.
Is it not? That was the other thing I wanted to ask. Okay, Tim Gillingham goes from Bowtech to Matthews. For somebody like me, that's monumental. It would take me months to do that. But is it really that big of a deal for someone who shoots?
For me, it's actually, honestly, in looking forward, I actually think I'm gonna, like I said, my initial response was, damn, I think I'm gonna shoot these bows a lot better. And I really do. I feel like I'm gonna shoot them better because they aim better.
Yeah.
They got this weird they got a different valley on them. So like my Bowtechs, I would take the bows, I would draw against the peg until it started to build, and then I would back off to my lowest number. And that would be my holding weight. Well, if you creeped from that number forward, it would rise really quick, right? These Matthews are different. When you get to the peg, right when you get to the peg, it gives me that holding weight number. And as if I let off to the lower number, it usually drops, like right now, for example, my ASA bow is 21 pounds right at the peg, and it backs off to 18. But then you have to move like almost at least a quarter inch, if not a half an inch to start building. So I can't really short peg a cam to bump my holding weight up or shorten my valley. I mean, it'll shorten the valley, I guess, a little bit, but it's a different valley too. So I wonder, one of my big problems has always been creeping, and that might help with that actually. And with the grip under center on these Matthews bows, they don't sag. If you get a lot of bows that have, the grip up, up at center.
Yeah.
If you don't have your knock point above center, that's one of the problems I ran into with the Bowtechs a lot, is that I had to shoot the bottom of the arrow at the top of the burger hole, and they had such a narrow in cut in the riser and gap between the flex guard and the thing. It was really, I could never run 4-inch four-fletch on my indoor arrows, and I had really struggled running high-profile four-fletch on triple X's, which I run for a lot of my stuff. Yeah. And now I can do whatever I want. Another problem I had was, because of the flex guard, is at my long draw length, I cannot shoot a bow with a string stop very well.
Okay.
And my hunting bows, I can't hit anything with a string stop unless I get it, an inch to an inch and a half off the string. And I filmed that, and I think the reason is because the arrow's already left the string at that point. And so with the Matthews, the way they have their system, I can actually cut cut the string stop off however I want, whatever length I want, and it doesn't matter. So I can still get some stoppage on the string so it doesn't hit my arm and quietens the bow up a little bit, but I can actually still achieve the accuracy out of it. Where I with the Bowtex, I was having to modify a string stop. I made them out of, actually just bought them from Lancaster, the little bear, the bear string stops.
Yeah.
So they kind of had an elbow, so I had to let the start come inside of it, and it's just very limited in what I could do with it. But
what does that do, taking the string stop off? I see lots of folks do it. Chris Perkins takes it off.
Just think it allows the string longer to settle,
Okay.
To hold its line. If you're, I think short drawings can get away with it because it's way easier to keep everything in alignment. I can tell Paige she barely draws her bow back. I mean, how hard would it be to shoot your bow? Come on. I mean, just go, boom, boom. There's nothing to go wrong, right?
Yeah.
And mine hits it with a freaking bullwhip every time. It's like, my hunting bows are just so difficult to tune. I mean, to get the arrows all tuning to each other is just, it's such a vicious slap to the back of that arrow.
Yeah.
So, but I just think that's it. I mean, it does put a little more vibration in the system. I mean, they came about all of a sudden and it was just a feel thing, but nobody ever vetted feel versus effect. I mean, if you're very consistent and you make super consistent shots and the string hits the string stop exactly the same every time, I don't think there's much of an issue.
Right.
But if you're like me and you chuck and jive a little bit and rely on English, I don't think that thing helps me much, But I get a lot of forward string travel too, and I got that long loop on there. I don't I was really, those 39s last year for some reason were just biting the dog snot out of my arm. I really was getting hit hard with them, and
Paige wouldn't loan you any of her duct tape.
Her short bows, yeah. Well,
for her forearm.
What I did is I just increased the brace. I took one at the end of the year for feet and ashles, and I increased the brace height on it, shortened it up, increased the brace height, and that helped a little bit. But it was still buzzing me a little bit.
Huh.
It was drawing blood. It was getting that bad. I mean, it was.
Man.
But these bows are just mellow. I mean, just real easy to shoot. Just really, they've been so far really easy to tune.
Yeah. Top hat system, played with that much?
It's a little more. It's a little bit more of a crude system, but I haven't had to do anything to my TRXs now. I'm sure once I get down to smaller diameter arrows,
right,
that's where it'll show up. So, but we'll see. I mean, so far my triple X's were just a snap tune. There was nothing to it. So,
yeah.
And people need to understand, it's like, depends where you want to run your center shot. That 13/16 or whatever that number everybody thinks is magic is not magic. Okay. I used to take my Bowtex and I would drill and tap my Hamskea launcher further to the left so that I could clear that riser better. And then I could just move the whole cam system to the left with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's those options. I don't know how much availability is there. I mean, you can flop those top hats around and do kind of, it's a little more crude of a system than say the Deadlock, but
right.
There's nothing to go wrong really either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deadlock was pretty reliable system. I mean, I had a few set screws lock up on me, but
yeah,
I don't know I kind of know what was causing, I think, but I'm not sure.
So 54 years old. Do you have a future plan in mind? Like how long you think you can keep going? How long you want to keep going? What does the future look like to you?
Old punchers never die. Tom Crow won Shooter of the Year at ASA, what, 67?
Is that what he was?
I think so, yeah.
67. Well,
I say that and I laugh about it, but it's true. You ever know a guy named Marlo Larson?
I don't know that name.
Marlo was an engineer at Browning. I believe he's one of the first guys to shoot 300 at Vegas, but this guy was, God, how old was he? He was in his early mid 80s and still shooting 300s on a Vegas target. But
Come
he
on.
just had this like 4-fingered release, like it was a big blocky thing, and he would just be X. But you can learn your whole life to deal with that motion.
Yeah.
The motion doesn't kill you like a guy that's his only way of a lot. Then you see this a lot with guys shooting a surprise shot. Once they start not aiming as tight as they used to, they don't know where to go. And then they go over and they delve a little bit into the punching world, and they get that little bit of anticipation and they don't know what to do about it. And then they start fearing it, and it just comes back worse. And it's usually just get caught in this. And I did that years ago. I mean, I spent 12 years going back and forth. And when I finally decided that screw everybody and what they thought, that's when I started winning.
Once you did it your way.
Yeah, well, it's my way. Yeah, it has its own demons. So does back tension. So does surprise shots.
Yeah.
You get under pressure. It's all based on our own assessment of ourselves, our self-esteem. Lanny Basham talks a lot about that. You put yourself right where you view yourself. Okay. So if you can't walk in, to Vegas knowing that 30X is your average and ordinary game and 28's your freaking shit day, you probably don't have a very good chance of winning. Let's just say that. And that's the kind of mentality it takes. And I just told myself years ago, I'm not going to wear my body out shooting indoor.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it.
And like you said, there have been guys who have shot for many, many more years past 54, but do you still have that drive every day? Because you need that as well.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
That is the hard part. Yeah. Because as you get older, you're not getting better. Right. And so you're looking for moments of glory rather than glory.
Yeah.
It's hard. That is the difficult thing, but it's interesting with Matthews now. So I was getting a little bit of contingency to shoot Masters and FIDA last year. So now I'm going to shoot senior at 54. So that'll drive me to, my competitive spirit will not allow me to just sit back and not try to win.
Right.
Jump in and talk crap on the young guys,
So, so for like outdoor nationals and stuff, you're going to be competing against the Chris Schaffs and the Sawyer Sullivans and Jimmy Lutz.
Oh, they're going to compete against me. Are you kidding me? I told Tate Morgan, I said, you're going to have to live with the fact that I sat you down in my very last FIDA tournament as a senior. So now maybe he can get some redemption.
And that's because that's where the contingent Matthews doesn't pay for Masters.
I don't, and it'll drive me. Actually, that's where I struggled the most. Man, did I have a problem shooting FIDA last year. I just could not get those freaking bows. I could not hold. And I don't know what it was. I hope the first time I put pierces in this bow, it just like, I remember standing in my backyard with Henry Bass, and we would just sit there shoot. I mean, we would just shoot 359, 357, 358, high X counts. And I don't know. I actually feel like this bow's aiming like I was then,
All right.
If I can keep the injuries. I worry about injuries more than anything. I worry about staying healthy,
Have you ever had shoulder problems?
No.
From archery? No.
Not really. And I think a lot of it is my shot style. I think the guys that sit there and strain to shoot a surprise shot, that's way harder on your body. Because that big surprise explosion I feel like whenever I try to shoot that way, I just feel so wore out at the end of a session. It's just not, I don't tax my body near as bad shooting the way I do.
Yeah.
And I shoot a lot of repetition. It's just crazy. Like the end of last year, my body felt great. I mean, there are years where I, sore and have, some tendonitis or whatever. But last year, man, I just felt super strong.
Now you like the index finger release. Kyle and Jimmy, they go for the thumb button. What's your theory there? What's the differences? Why do you like what you like?
To me, it's more forgiving. I like that ledging in here. I like this, but the problem with handhelds is if you don't hold them exactly the same, you're going to get flyers. And a man's got to know his limitations, right?
That's right.
It's like hooks. I mean, I know Kyle for he's shooting the goat last year, but I know he wants to shoot a good gated jaw. And I've hit people up for, especially like I've always felt like the jaw moves the wrong way on 90% of releases. If
opening
you can
to the right for a right-handed shooter.
Yeah, a single jaw caliper that, let me see if I can get that does this, that the jaw just opens and the loop comes straight out. There is no distortion of the loop at all. But if you're a guy that most people will grab a release like this, well, you just pulled it around and then the loop goes somewhere out in the middle of the jaw. Now imagine if your loop was dry, wet, different levels of, coming off of that. If you're pulling harder or softer, that thing's going to come off of there microscopically, different every time. And people think that it's just a mechanical device that's exactly repeatable. And that's not true.
And competing at your level, that's a difference. Bow hunter in the backyard, it might not make a difference.
I'm getting ready for Africa, and I've got these really nice arc system releases I bought from France. It's probably the best index finger I've it kind of incorporates the old Jim Fletcher dual bearing system. So you can get a real light trigger. It's a good trigger, but it's a hook. I can tell shooting through paper that I can't shoot it as consistent. It was harder for me. It just could not get the consistency through paper even that I could, when I'm tuning my arrows as I get with a Scott Little Goose, which is what I end up shooting. Now, I don't necessarily like the Scott Little Goose because the trigger is too heavy, in my opinion. I can't get the trigger down to the, 8 ounces that I want.
Right. That one is affected by your draw weight as well.
Yeah. It's a single sear, so it's affected by draw weight. Yeah, exactly. So, and then there's a plethora of junk on the market that just feels horrible. It doesn't feel. I mean, Spot Hog makes a pretty good single jaw caliper too, but it's just so small, and the trigger's so far forward, and I can't bring it back. It's just like they're just locking everybody into doing this, and then now your forearm's not in behind the shot, and your bone structure's not in alignment. A lot of people get hurt because their bone structure's not in alignment.
Right. Well, we went an hour. Was there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted us to touch base on?
No, I mean,
do you want to talk about Bowtech at all, and how you feel?
Really,
it's up to you.
There's nothing productive in it.
Okay.
We've gotten just tons of support and tons of phone calls from people that, think we did wrong. And,
right.
It is what it is. And they're going to have to reap the rewards or the negative of the decision they made, but, I think I felt pretty jilted over it, man. I had a 5-year contract, and I mean, somehow I got a 90-day clause slipped in there that I never saw.
How many years into it were you?
7.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, I actually thought I'd spend my career there.
Yeah.
It's not.
I know one thing I did want to ask you is, with going with what you talked about as far as the target archers and how they do drive sales that translate over to hunting, and now we're seeing this rise of the YouTubers and the people who specialize in that. Where do you see that going for people like yourself?
One of my big goals is to build a website and a YouTube channel and to be at the forefront of good information. Okay. I'm watching some of these guys throw their stuff up there, and it's just like, dude, if I shot that bad, I would never show anybody. I mean, the guy's trying to hit a balloon at 30 yards, and it's like, it's this big. It's like, I wouldn't be showing nobody that. I seen a guy one time do a video where he's like, we're going to test the difference between stabilizers and no stabilizers. And he's shooting 140 yards or something stupid. I mean, he can't even like keep it on the target. And I mean, you're trying to prove something. You got to have a baseline to prove off of, So it's just, there's some of it's just entertainment, I guess you'd say too. But
yeah. Does that frustrate someone like you?
Sure, absolutely does, because it's I go over to places like Africa, and I had like 10 guys over at this guy's house the last day we were there, and we're just talking archery and setting up bows and tuning bows. And I mean, this guy's hunted the same 40 years I have, and you can fit his archery stuff in a box. He's gonna crap when he gets into my shop.
Yeah, right.
But and they still get it done. I mean, the whole it just boils. The whole industry is like kind of dumbed down to that 30-yard whitetail bow hunter, because that's the majority of the market. So you don't have to be overly technical to tune a bow well enough to do that.
Right.
But if you want to reach out, and also hear people say, "Well, I can't believe you shoot like that at 100 yards or whatever." Well, I can't shoot like. There's no way I could ever. Yeah, you can. You can actually.
Yeah.
But you have to have a process for what you do things. And my goal is to build a website and a YouTube channel that kind of the website stores the videos, the YouTube channel, hosts them, and become a the go-to place if somebody wants to research, how to do this or how to do that. And I've done about everything in the sport. I eventually, once I gain their trust, and I want to be able to review products and give them some insight on good, better, best. I mean, there's lots of good products, It just depends, what do you want?
Right.
What are you using it for? If I'm building a buffalo bow for this guy, I'm not going to put a 7-pin sight, because his arrows are going to be too slow and it's not going to work. I mean, it's not going to be conducive to what he's doing.
Right.
Whereas a plains game setup, I like my 7 pins on a mover. I actually don't think I moved my sight on one of those animals I shot over there. It just happens. Well, it just happens that fast. You don't have time.
Right. That's, I'll never forget, I prefer the fixed pin sight, and I had a 5-pin, and I was hunting antelope with a decoy, and the thing came running in and was about 10 yards. So I drew back, and he wheeled on a dime and went out and stopped at 40. I was already at full draw.
Yeah.
That's a big difference if I had my single pin set up there, but all I had to do, pick a different pin.
This whole single pin movement, man, people, it's more accurate, but it's not practical. It's like we were talking about broadheads, and like, just because a broadhead's more accurate doesn't mean its terminal performance is as good as it could be. You have to have both. Okay.
Yeah.
You have to have both, and you have to have kind of a happy medium of both, or, it'd be perfect. It'd be great to have perfect terminal, or perfect ballistic, but perfect terminal, but I don't think they resist, they can exist in the same world 100%. So.
Yeah. It seems like, boy, those fixed blades, boy, they can go through some stuff, but then you get a distance. Yeah,
well, it's like talking to Joel Maxwell yesterday. It's like, it's like fletching the front of your arrow.
Right.
And it really is. I mean, that's the best way to explain it, and, back to kind of, how target archery influences hunting sales. I mean, a quick touch up on that. And the reason I think Matthew sees this, and I think more people should really look at this, is it's not necessarily the guy that comes into the shop that you're trying to influence, right? They may not know who Levi Morgan or Tim Gillingham or Jesse Broadwater is, but I guarantee the guy behind the counter does.
Right.
Okay, so I think the tournament side of the sport does influence that guy behind the counter, who in turn, which a lot of times that guy behind the counter is also a competitive shooter also.
Sure.
I see that. I mean, lots and lots. I mean, it's not always, but they're always influenced by what's going on. They always seem to be pretty much up to speed with what's going on in the industry. And I think that's just a good, happy balance. And that's where you see companies that decide to get out of target archery or not supported, they just don't do as well, in the hunting space.
Yeah. Well, I always wonder, as we see, private property going the way it is. I know just in my lifetime what I could hunt versus what I now can hunt.
Right.
I mean, it just seems like how sustainable is that versus
Well,
target archery?
Becomes such a, well, and I always said that's one of the things that I've always said, if people will get behind, if our hunting companies will get behind promoting competitive shooting, there's a lot of people that will get into competitive shooting that may not necessarily hunt, but when it comes time to vote on hunting, when it comes time to support legislation or not put wolves into frickin' Colorado and destroy the elk herds, it's just like, you've got to have that support, and I had a guy on my podcast, John Stallone, who has a program that where they really teach guys how to get involved in passing legislation. And it truly is the minority voice making, legislation. Okay.
For sure.
And he said he had something like over 90% success rate with the legislation that they were trying to pass with his program. And I'm trying to remember what that was called. It was called HOWL, HOWL. And, I encourage guys to look at that because, that's you want to get active in, you can't just sit back on your laurels and we'll lose everything we have, I hope they keep public land open in the West, but slowly I hear rumors that Colorado might go to a draw system, Is that just because there's less animals or because there's more hunters? I think it's both,
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just, it keeps getting more difficult. I mean, where I am, let alone access, just stuff is getting built up. And what was woods is now a shopping mall. And, that's...
Exactly. Yep. No doubt.
Just more difficult. And one thing I have noticed is I do see a lot more target shooters now who don't hunt than when I started. When I started in archery, everybody who target shot was a hunter. That's just the way it was. You were just doing that. But now, it's not so much that way.
Yeah, you go to like a FIDA Nationals and you'll have 700, 800, 900 people there, and a lot of those people don't hunt.
Right. Yeah, those in particular. Yeah. Yeah, we certainly, that's one of the competition archery media. We want to see more competition archery, more shooters, more archers getting into it. That's certainly
it's like
something.
It's any sport. Money drives it, and there has to be a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And you could say getting kids into the sport is the key, but it's not necessarily. You have to create a future too. You have to create. There has to be a reason and an incentive to do everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Incentive drives everything in the world. So
NASP brings in a huge number of people, and then that precipice that they fall off after they're done with NASP is pretty big.
Yeah, it's big because, I watch school bus loads of kids come up here to Jake's Archery, and half of them are embarrassed because they don't take the time to teach them to hit anything.
Right.
I did a program one time when Tom Zlenovich had our company. One of the forts bought a bunch of military forts bought a bunch of equipment. I went out there and did a appreciation day. One of the things that I made sure of is we had a peep sight on the bow, we had a movable sight, and a release. And we could set a kid up in 5 minutes. He was hitting the target.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what it takes. You got to give people. They're not going to go do something they're embarrassed about. They shoot in the back wall because nobody took any time to, with a bow with no sights. Most people don't think they can do it. Then after that, they go their assessment of it is they can't do it. Instead of, you can. You spend 2 days with me, and I can guarantee you'll be hitting, this at 80 yards.
It's pretty cool when you aim at something with a bow and put that arrow in it. That's pretty cool.
Yep. The mystical flight of the arrow, as Ted said.
That's Ted. That's right. Well, that's all I got, Tim, unless, again, if there's anything you thought of that we didn't hit on.
No, not really. Very sound platform. I'm sure I'll get one of the new bows in a 40 before too awfully long. Might be next year, but I imagine it's in the works. It might need a cam like this big to fit my draw length.
Yeah. The 40, what is the max draw length on that? Because I haven't seen one, so I don't
funny,
know.
The bow, it says 32. They run a little long. I'm like I said, I got it twisted up a little bit, and I'm 32 and almost 3/4.
Okay, that's on a title.
No,
that's on a TRX. Okay.
Yeah, but what's funny, the bow's longer and the string angle's different. So I'm actually shooting a teeny bit short, probably 1/4 inch shorter than I shot with my Bowtechs.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I just feel too long.
Yeah.
It feels long when I'm, got it set up the same. So.
All right. Well, let me do our outro here and then hang on just a second. Are you ready, Kyle? Yeah. All right, everybody. That is another episode of the Competition Archery Media Podcast. Tim Gillingham, new Matthews shooter. Glad you were able to take some time to talk to us. We always appreciate talking to you.
Well, thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing you guys out on the trail. It's coming quick.
All right, everybody. Competition Archery Media Podcast. You can find that on all the platforms, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Thanks for being here today. And we are clear. Cool, man. Thanks for taking. Do you know when